Okay. My name is Melody Brandon. I'm with Obsessed with Essentials. And I'm super excited to talk about detoxing. Mainly, I'm having Lauren talk about it. She'll introduce herself in a second, but Lauren and I have known each other since first grade. Crazy. She is my best friend and a nurse and super, super passionate about detoxing and especially coffee enemas. So she is the one that got me to start doing them. And I just thought I was so intrigued about them. And I know everyone else is too. And she literally walked me through my first coffee enema a year or two ago. So thank you, Lauren. So we're going to give it over to her mainly to talk. I'll close it out with the end with a couple more resources for you and things that I personally like doing as well. But pass it over to you, Laura.
Okay, well, yeah, thank you all for being here tonight. Like Melody said, if you have questions, you can post them in the chat, or of course we can kind of open up a Q&A, time at the end as well, just to kind of go over some stuff, because this is kind of a little out there, not your everyday topic, right? Some people do perfume classes and I am getting to the coffee enema one. So anyways, I think by nature, I'm kind of anticipating there'd be, some understandably some questions. So anyways, but like Melody said, I'm a nurse and, I still work, in the hospital environment. And, I've been a nurse a little under 15 years, but, many years now. And, kind of what I always say, whatever class I'm teaching, like I would never want to live in a world without Western medicine. Most of my background is in trauma and ICU. And in that setting, if my leg is severed in a car accident, like please take me to the emergency room. I want the generous anesthesiologist with like all the good drugs, like I'll rebuild my gut health, after my leg is healed, I'll do all the things. And it really shines in that setting. But unfortunately, I also feel as much as Western healthcare kind of shines in that emergency and trauma setting, it also kind of, in a lot of ways, can fall on its face when we talk about chronic disease and lifestyle. It's sort of like there's an elephant in the room when it comes to nutrition, gut health, detox, and reducing toxic load. But the good news is really you can be your own best advocate because you don't need anyone's prescription pad or anyone else's really permission other than your own. And that's really where it's great to link arms with, other people. I know when I started changing over my lifestyle years ago, I just started, kind of devouring information. And, Melody knows I love like butter coffee. And so I was just looking into like, our food system, but I just started looking at people who had already been doing it because that's where I wanted to go. So anyways, that's where really like a community and just finding education and resources, I think is really helpful. So anyways, do you want me to talk about?
Yeah,
do you want to
I'll
talk
pull up
about
the slides real quick. I was just sharing your beautiful talk on Instagram so people could hear it as well. So I was video recording you. Okay, let me share my screen and I'm going to pull up some slides just so you guys can get an idea. Like, well, maybe you think like, I don't have any toxins. What are you talking about? What am I even trying to detox from? And so sort of until our eyes are open to really what there is, we sort of are oblivious to why our body maybe isn't functioning well. So here's a couple slides and then we'll pull up some more just to give you an idea what a toxin is. Can you see that, Laura, or no?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So a toxin. So any substance that places undue stress on the body, and then toxic load. So those are the toxins. And then the toxic load is like the sum of those and, how they accumulate within our body. And then they place a burden, on our system. I always say like the body, I learned this in nursing school and in all my prerequisites. The body is always trying to get back to a place of homeostasis and balance. And there's very elaborate, which I won't go into, in this talk, feedback loops and systems that your body has been designed to have to maintain homeostasis. It will go to great lengths to do it. But if you are placing extra burden on it, it is having to work that much harder to try and just, maintain homeostasis. So anyways, that's what we're looking at for a toxin. Do I have control of oh yeah, perfect. Okay. And then, you know, particularly with our modern world, I think there's this assumption that if something is on the market, it must be safe. The reality is there's a lot of chemicals that have hit the market that have never gone through a safety vetting process. It's almost the opposite. You know, they get to the market, they're throughout our environment, and then sometimes some get pulled after they've been, you know, on the market a long time. So, you know, just because you have a cleaning product, you know, on the shelf, you can actually go to the EWG website is a resource I really like. And you can actually, you know, the Clorox bleach wipes, which is one of my bestest friend, next to Melody, of course. And, you know, it's like a 9 or an F, you know, 9 out of 10 toxicity or F on the toxic load because of all the chemicals in it. So, you know, some of the stuff they're known toxins, and yet they're, they're, you know, in our cleaning products, they're in our personal care products. Fragrance is a really big one. It's been termed the new F word or the new second-hand smoke because it's just everywhere, and it really drastically increases our toxic burden.
Yeah, I'm going to pull up the fragrance one right now. And I feel like a lot of times within our society, we're just made to feel that like getting that Clorox is the only thing that's really going to make us feel good, right? You know, or spraying that Febreze or whatever it may be. I mean, they're literally like pounding us with chemicals everywhere we go right now because of the pandemic. I mean, like even if you aren't doing it in your own home, you are being bombarded with it, right? And a lot of times we might even believe it, right? If you haven't fully transitioned over to a natural lifestyle and you're just starting, you might feel like, oh, but that might make you feel safer. When in reality, you're putting that toxic burden on your body by using these products over and the hand sanitizer over and over again, to where your body can't even function correctly, right? So I think it's just being aware of really what's in the products we're spraying and putting on every single day. But a lot of it is, you know, a huge one is going to be fragrance, which people can easily swap out in their home with our products from doTERRA and essential oils. I mean, we have our new On Guard hand sanitizer wipes. We have clean skincare, hair care. You know, instead of candles, you can do your diffuser. I mean, really, you can cut so many of your daily burden, you know, that's at least in your home. Because they say, I think, that most people's most toxic places in their home, right? It's actually less toxic for a lot of people when you get outside your home. Now, hopefully my home isn't like that, but a lot of people's is. It's like you're spraying every sheet, you're putting, you know, that you know, fabric softener on your clothes. I mean, literally you're just loading ourselves up thinking that we're doing a good thing, but in reality it's a burden.
Yeah, and I would say too with fragrance, just something that comes to mind. I don't know if anyone's ever done like a Whole30 or some sort of diet where they like make you get out like all sugar whatsoever because you like sort of reset your receptors. Because a little bit will just kind of, you know, keeps you kind of desensitized. I felt like for myself, fragrance was that way. I'm like a former, you know, before I kind of changed over my lifestyle. I mean, I cringe now when I think about it, but I used to buy those like balls that you would put in your laundry machine for like extra fragrance. And I like, you know, Febreze, I did all of it. But then once I really got rid of it and kind of like quite literally cleared the air and like cleansed got my receptors reset. Now I'm like very sensitive to it. I can really pick up a synthetic scent. I don't know if you feel like you're the same way, Mel. Like now,
absolutely, I can smell
any better awareness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy. But yeah, I mean, just to look that like, you know, all of these things are like hormone disrupting, you know, so people are having like infertility issues, like, you know, we're getting autoimmune, like all the different things, asthma, allergies, nonstop from people from a young age. And we're wondering why. And there are various reasons, but a lot of it is this toxic burden, right? From birth, maybe they're getting sprayed upon over and over again. So, you know, like they say, think twice, go to your bathroom, look at your labels. And we're not saying that every single product that says the word fragrance is bad. There are some, if you know the company, right, that they might even, I think doTERRA has 1 or 2 products, and just because the regulatory status, even though it's a natural, like a, you know, derivative of like an orange peel or whatever, it's labeled because, you know, sometimes that's just with products fragrance, but 90% of the time or more, it's not natural, right? They've hidden, you know, in this word fragrance, you can put anything. And they say that the average American woman has, with 12 personal care products, and maybe you're using more, contains 160 chemicals. So you just got to realize, what are you putting on yourself and or your child or a family member every single day. And like Loran said, we were just talking and she said, control the controllables. And it's like, there's a lot of things in our life we can't control, but what can you control in your life, right? To lessen that toxic burden. And so for those things that we can't control, that's why we're doing this class, to teach you how to detox, right? How, when maybe you're traveling or you're feeling overburdened or whatever it may be, you're within, your work every single day and you're feeling like you're in it. But how do you detox your body, and maybe what are the symptoms showing you that your body needs to be detoxed? So let me pull up some of those ones. Oh, I thought this one was a great one you shared on your Instagram, which it's like, is your toxicity bucket too full, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's kind of how we think of, I know how I think of toxic load. And I think this, you can also think of, you have a bucket. And I think we all have, we also, we haven't even talked about genetics. I know genetically, I actually am predisposed to not detox super well from, labs that I've had drawn and doctors I've seen. I'm not one of those people who just, I definitely, it's something it's worthwhile for all of us, but I just know. So we all kind of have our own size of our bucket. We all come into this world, when you're born with a certain, maybe you're already filled up a certain way. That was another study the EWG did, I think it was in the early 2000s, somewhere in there, where they studied umbilical cord blood, and they
Yes.
found, I think it was 286 or something, somewhere right in there,
Same.
known chemicals, and hundreds of them were carcinogenic, endocrine disruptive. I mean, the whole horrifying list. And then actually, so I pulled up the study, I was reading the article. What was even more horrifying to me was they said, you think, oh, they must have cast such a wide net if they found that many. They said there was actually so much we didn't test for that we know we would have found even more had we just tested for them. So, like our children are now you're quite literally not born with a clean slate. You think you're like very insulated in the mother's womb. So like the toxic burden. So before they've even, spent their first day earthside, you have, upwards of 300 chemicals, that are known to be harmful. And then they haven't even been studied in their synergy, all together.
Right.
So like, the accumulation of them. So all that to say, we all have our own bucket, and it can look a little different because of our bio individuality. But you don't want to be, I think the reason Melody and I wanted to spend some time on this before we jumped into the actual detox, what you don't want to be doing is trying to drain your bucket with detox, which you should, but then at the same time, like pouring an extra big glass of water or, of toxins back in, you kind of want to minimize your exposure while maximizing, the drainage and, detoxifications. You are getting the most efficacy.
Totally. Yeah. And Erica even posted in the comments and she's like, heavy metals. It's like, yeah, babies, umbilical cord, heavy metals. There's so many things that our little ones are dealing with, right? That is so sad, but that's just the truth. So I think these slides let's see. Would that be the next one that you want to go?
Okay. So, I'm going to talk about coffee enemas in just a minute. And, we don't want to talk about all the toxins in our world for the sake of, like Melody already said, we're going to control the controllable. The goal is not to live in a bubble or live in fear. It's really to go from a stance of like, okay, I can be in charge of my own environment, and then I can do some added practices that will build resilience into my body. And so I can go forth and, kind of feel free in that sense, not from a fearful place. And before I we kind of jump into like, coffee enemas and how they work, I would say, there's different things we all can be doing, whether you leave this webinar and you say, okay, I'm in, because I've had a couple of people tell me, man, and you actually, if you read some of these bloggers and people who share that, they're like, I had to work up the courage for a year. So maybe, if tonight you just kind of get introduced to the concept and later on down the road, or if you've kind of been mulling over and like, this is kind of what's going to, make you take the plunge. There's things we all can be doing and really should be doing, to just maximize kind of our overall wellness and detox load through detox pathways. So we already talked about some. I had on my list, like looking at synthetic fragrance and what's in your air. So we already talked about that to minimize, the toxins. But you also want to be drinking, like I always say, drink a lot of water and then drink some more. So the minimum, unless you have some sort of underlying kidney or heart disease, that you've worked out something different with your doctor, but the average person should be drinking a minimum of half of your body weight in ounces of water. So I don't weigh 100 pounds, but for math's sake, if you weigh 100 pounds, you should be drinking at least 50 ounces of water every day. This is gonna hydrate your cells. It's gonna flush out your kidneys. It's gonna run through your lymphatics. Filtered water, you don't want chlorinated and fluoride and all the other stuff that is gonna fill the bucket, but filtered water. And then an added boost is to add a couple drops of doTERRA, really any citrus oil, lemon, tangerine, anything like that. Of course, we're talking about doTERRA oils. We're not recommending you take a Whole Foods or some, dollar bin Target essential oil. Those are, but doTERRA oils can be ingested. And so all you need is 2 drops in a whole liter. So the thing that happens when you take citrus oils, they actually boost your glutathione levels. We're going to talk a lot about glutathione. Later on, we get to coffee enemas. Erica's giving me a thumbs up. That is your master antioxidant. And so that is when we get, like I said, we'll talk more about coffee enemas, but that's a huge boost for your detoxification system, in addition to getting all that water. You want to look at things like eating lots of grains, cruciferous vegetables, because they have sulfur content, which is very good, has a good affinity for toxins. So that's a good detoxifier. Moving your body, getting your heart rate up will, not only is it just good for you overall, but it helps your lymph move, and then you'll actually excrete, just toxins, sweat, through our skin. That's another reason, skin, you can either excrete a lot of toxin or you can absorb a lot of toxins. You want to be using it to your advantage and, be breaking a sweat. And Melody and I are both really into sweating. We both have an infrared sauna and we'll go, just sweat it out. So sweating is a really, good thing to do. Let me see if I missed anything at your notes. Okay, and then also, again, we're going to be talking a lot about poop tonight, but having regular bowel movements, because that's one of the ways, you have built-in detoxification systems into your body, and that's what you'll hear a lot of mainstream, just Western medicine will say, oh, you don't need to detox. You have a liver, you have a colon, you have built-in detox systems. But when we get to coffee enemas, you're really doing it for your liver. And it's kind of like cleaning the air filter in your car. You change the air filter in your car, and now, as we just kind of covered, we're bombarded with so many different toxins. I mean, maybe if we were, living back in a cave and you just had your fresh spring water and, you didn't have all this modernization, maybe you wouldn't have to go to such great lengths, but that's not the case anymore of everything we're exposed to, in our agriculture, our air. The rainwater has been found to have Roundup in it. It just is in our environment. You can't get away from, there's a certain amount of toxicity you just can't get away from, in the world we live in. Okay. So I'll give you my 2-minute synopsis of how I first got started doing coffee enemas, because I think, anyways, whether it relates to you or it might, give you some ideas of like why, something you might want to consider. So, it was years ago, it was like almost 10 years ago, my skin started breaking out in like eczema, and it started, as a little patchier. I had never had eczema before, and it just kind of kept growing and growing. And I had been eating really clean. I had been working on a life, kind of really cleaning up my lifestyle, but it just kept growing. I knew something was off, like deep down. I think we've all felt that sometimes, where you're like, I know something's causing this. I don't know what it is. It's kind of a mystery, but like something is off, something is causing it. And I had toyed with the idea of seeing a natural practitioner, this, that, and the other. But in the meantime, while I was kind of like, I wonder what's going on, my skin just erupted. I almost woke up one day and my face was like almost swollen, completely shut. I actually texted one of my nurse practitioner friends, and she was like, girl, you need some steroids. And, of course I didn't want steroids, but this is kind of my take home message. There is a time and a place for Western medicine. So, but I started to feel tightness in my chest. I literally could barely open my eyes. You think when something's on your face, you think like, oh, it's probably not as bad as I think it is. And I woke up and my husband looked at me and he goes, oh, babe. And you're like, okay, well, that's not good. Like, he offered to stay home from work. And, like, so, you're looking bad if the husband, does that. So anyways, I went to my primary care doctor. I saw the nurse practitioner, they got me in, and she's like, they ran some labs, and they looked at my blood count, the blood specific white blood cells that looks at allergic reactions was really low. So I must be having some allergic reaction. They gave me a shot of steroids in the butt and a steroid pack to go home. And of course it cleared it up. And I did not want those steroids, but I also knew I was kind of like already behind the 8 ball. So in that moment, I vowed to myself, I'm going to take this Band-Aid. I'm going to buy myself some time, but I am going to get to the bottom of like whatever is causing this, like whatever it takes. Kind of made a deal with myself. So I ended up going to a functional medicine doctor. He ran a slew of labs, and they do a very thorough health history. And on that, he said, have you ever taken antibiotics and how often, blah, blah, blah. Well, in my late teens and early 20s, I took a boatload of antibiotics. I had acne. And so my doctor at the time had just prescribed me like an ongoing monthly refill of antibiotics. I know Melody's face. I cringe now when I think of it. I actually went asking for an Accutane prescription because it was so bad. I had tried, all the facials, all the creams, and it was really out of hand. And, at that age, I mean, any age, but, that age as a young girl, you just, you want your face to be presentable. So I just wanted it cleared up. So he was reluctant. He's like, listen, like there's a lot of other avenues. So he put me on like a hormonal birth control to clear up the hormonal acne. He put me on the antibiotic, this antibiotic cream. I was taking the antibiotic slather. Anyways, it did clear it up. And I did it for years and it did clear it up. But my practitioner told me, he goes, how long ago was that? And I said, it was about 10 years. He's like, well, it takes about 10 years to the day for your gut to really kind of reap, you reap the consequences of that. Because at the time you think like, okay, great, it's working, it was a win. So did my labs, sent off all sorts of stuff. They tested me for Candida, if you've heard of Candida. Candida is a naturally occurring in a normal, healthy gut flora, but remember, it's homeostasis, it's checks and balances. You want like an appropriate amount. But I just remember, I can still see the image in my mind. It tested, it was a stool test. It tested what was in my stool, and the Candida was a red line that ran completely off the page. So like I was just completely overloaded with Candida. I had some other stuff going on, but that was the main one. So I finally get to the part where, he works out this treatment program and take these herbs. One was oil of oregano, some other herbs that, help with Candida and this, that, and the other. And so I'm ready to start. And I had been reading up on it. It says you're going to feel bad when you start because it's called like a Herx reaction where, you're killing off all this bad stuff, but it is going to get released into your system. And before it makes its way out, you're going to feel crummy. But I didn't care. At the meantime, my chest was just, erupting. I had, eczema everywhere. I was so miserable. I didn't care. I was like ready to get to the bottom of it and be done with it. I'm 3 days into the protocol, and you probably don't even remember this, Melody. Paige and I showed up, my daughter, to Blake's 3-year-old birthday party, and I remember feeling so awful. I was like having to like focus just to have a conversation. I had like the worst brain fog, body aches. I mean, I felt awful, but I'm like, maybe I'm just making a big deal about it. I'm sure I'm fine. Like I was just trying to, stay the course. And that night I went to bed. I woke up in the middle of the night and I projectile vomited, and like over and over again. My husband said he was going to come see what was left of me. He thought I threw up my toenails. That's what he said, because I was so toxic. So from everything that was being released into my system through this protocol. So I email my doctor and I say, like, this is what's going on. Like, I have to be able to complete this, but what I'm gonna do, he said, you're not detoxifying fast enough. So like the amount of toxins being released through this detox and how you're excreting them is too much of a mismatch, and that's why you're getting sick. So he's like, you should take some activated charcoal, and he gave me some other ideas. So I got on the internet and I searched die off for Candida, and coffee enema came up over and over and over again of people like, singing their praises. That was the first time I've ever heard of them. I just read about it on the internet. So I tried it. I, read up on it, and like immediately after, the itching on my skin like came down from like the inside out. I could feel like the relief. So pretty much after that, I was hooked. And then Melody heard me talk about them from every point there on out, because at the time I really wasn't in search for a coffee enema, I was in search of something that was just going to help control my symptoms, but it ended up being, it ended up working better than I ever, could have imagined. So anyways, that's kind of my story of like how I found found coffee enemas. And then along the way, I noticed a lot of other health benefits and sort of side benefits aside from what I initially started using them for. So, okay, so let's talk about coffee enemas. So just a disclaimer, have to give this disclaimer. This isn't medical advice. This is me sharing my experience. You should, if you have any sort of like inflammatory bowel disease like Crohn's, colitis, you've had bowel surgeries, you definitely, heart failure, any sort of medical, challenges, you definitely want to check with your healthcare provider before, starting something like this. I would say ideally though, hopefully it's a medical provider that has heard of and knows of coffee enemas, so they know the benefits and some of the caveats to it. But generally speaking, they're safe. They're very safe. If you compare the safety profile of a coffee enema to a pharmaceutical, coffee enemas are very safe. But just have to give that disclaimer. So it really is what it sounds. You're putting coffee enemas in the colon. At the end, in that resource guide that Melody was talking about, I have links because it's not just any coffee. There's coffee that's formulated specifically for coffee enemas. So you don't want to just take any Folgers or instant coffee or anything like that. It is a specific type of coffee. But again, all the links for like an enema bucket, the coffee, all that sort of stuff, is there. And you can just go on you don't have to use those ones, but those are just, some ideas. So the reason it works, and you can see through this image. So if you're familiar, so if you're looking at your abdomen, the abdominal, in medicine, we look at the abdomen in 4 quadrants. It's like a line down the center, and at your belly button, there's 4 quadrants. Yeah, thank you. So your liver is underneath on your rib cage, like kind of right up, towards your rib cage on the right side. And then your gallbladder is like kind of tucked right in there. And then your large intestine, you can see it there. So that's kind of just the layout. And so what is interesting, or maybe what most people wouldn't think of when they think, oh, you can use a coffee enema to detox. You can use enemas in general to detox the colon, help clear out old debris, that sort of thing. But a coffee enema specifically is actually mostly designed to detoxify the liver. The main benefit, yes, you do get some colon detoxification from it, but the main benefit of the coffee enema specifically is for the liver. So, and also at the end there, I also in the links have a step-by-step guide of like how you do it, how much to brew, like all that sort of stuff. So I'm just going to kind of go through like the general mechanics of it, but just know there's the details of like outlined, because even if you go to this webinar, I would still want you to pull it up and reread the instructions, before you went and did one. I did a couple times, would read the notes on how to do one before I did my first one. But anyway, so the general idea is that you've brewed the coffee per the instructions, the right coffee, and it goes up into the colon. You're gonna lie on your left side while you're instilling the coffee, but then you're gonna turn over and lie on your right side, because it's gonna go up your colon, and that's gonna give it the most direct pathway to what they call it the portal vein, or the hepatic portal vein. That's the circulation within the liver. So what happens is the coffee travels up the colon to the area of the hemorrhoidal veins, and that circulatory system that has to do with the liver and the gallbladder and the colon, kind of where they're all, intersecting. And the caffeine and the other, some of the other chemical compounds, there's a bunch of them, but theobromine and other ones, those chemical compounds within the coffee. So you don't want to use decaf coffee. That's a common question. Can you use decaf? It's like you only absorb 1/4 of the caffeine through a coffee enema, as opposed to when you drink it the traditional way, orally. So you're only absorbing a fraction of it, but what it is doing, it is dilating those vessels and you're opening that up. And so that stimulates glutathione. It also stimulates like a release of bile to be dumped into the small intestine, because it's all, like I said, through that anatomy, you can see it's all right there. And sometimes you even get what is called a, gosh, I wrote it down. It's like a little gurgle. You will hear a little gurgle. I have heard it, and that's like your gallbladder like whooshing out bile. You won't always hear that, but you definitely know, like, oh, your gallbladder, oh, a squirt. You'll hear a little squirt kind of in your belly, or a gurgle, and that's your gallbladder like pushing out the bile. And the thing about bile is it's recirculated about 10 times before it's turned over. And if you know anything like the liver, one of its chief jobs, it has many roles, but one of the main roles of the liver is to detoxify and filter. And so you're filtering a lot of your toxins are filtered, through your liver. So it's all connected right there. So you're catching a lot of those toxins in your bile. So if you're able to contract it, squirt it out, and then you'll eventually end up releasing it. When you rid yourself of your coffee enema, you're getting rid of all those toxins. Let's see. So, and then in addition to that, anything additional in the colon is also getting pushed out. So you're pushing out heavy metals, candida, the byproducts, and sometimes, we won't get into it here, but sometimes people pass parasites too.
Yeah, no, a lot of times. One question someone had, the coffee enema, would it be the same as getting a colonic?
Yeah, that's a great question. So colonics, there's different kinds of colonics, but colonics generally, like if you go get like a professional colonic, I haven't had one of those myself, but from what I've read and heard people talk about, is colonics, I think it's like they move a large volume of like water through your colon, and then it's allowed to like come back out versus like retaining it. So this is like, you allow the coffee to go in, then you're going to clamp it, like you hold it in, and you're going to retain it for 12 to 15 minutes. You are also like, your body is filtering your whole blood volume goes through the liver every few minutes. And so you're kind of, they liken it almost like a dialysis exchange, for a kidney with the coffee in it. You're also like filtering out through like osmosis, this, the toxins from your colon and the liver and the blood supply. So after it's ran through a few times at the 12 to 15 minute mark, it's sort of counterproductive to continue to retain it. You've kind of reached your saturation, and you don't want to start reabsorbing the toxins that you've just filtered out. So,
oh, weird. For some reason, I thought to 20 minutes you wanted to go, but you're saying 12 to 15.
12, I probably 20, everything I've read is
way more than me, but I don't know. For some reason I had 20 in my mind that it was my goal to stay on, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah. Everything I've read has said 12 to 15 is
perfect.
Kind of
all right. 12 to 15. Now,
and most people, if you're just starting out, to be honest, I don't think you'll even
hold it that long. Yeah.
You won't hold it that long. This is maybe TMI, but I think this whole class is about TMI.
No, it is. Just say it like it is.
So I know if I have done, maybe I haven't done a coffee enema in a week, and I do one, I maybe can't hold it like super long, maybe just a few minutes. And then I do one the next day, and I can usually hold it longer because I don't have as much, I've already kind of released some of that toxicity. So,
and sometimes once it's in you, because we are being TMI, you're gonna like, sometimes for me personally, when I'm letting the coffee go in, right? Because, and we'll go a little bit more step by step of that, but when the coffee's coming down the tube into you, right? Like I sometimes have to clamp it, not even once it's all the way in, like, because it's a rush at first, right? And your body's going to feel certain sensations. Everyone's body's probably different. So maybe I'll like let some of it go in, clamp it, relax my body for 10 seconds, unclamp it, and let more come in, right? I'm not going to let the whole thing shift.
You kind of want to allow your body to adjust a little bit.
To adjust to it, exactly. And then even too, when I'm laying down, typically at least one time in the midst of me laying down, my body's going to feel like, ooh, like it wants to release it. But if I can relax, or sometimes I even have to clench a little bit, maybe that's TMI, I am clenching, and then it'll settle, and then I can do it the whole 15 minutes. Otherwise, if I give into that one sensation at minute 3 or something, most of the time I can clench, relax, it settles, and then I can last the entire time. But it is a sensation that makes you feel like, oh my gosh. And I remember the first time I did it, when I did get to the 10, I think I lasted to the 10-minute mark the first time. I mean, it tells you when it's ready to come out, and
Yeah.
there's no way you're going to be keeping laying there. You'll get that sensation and you need to get up at that point.
Yeah, and sometimes at that point, even if you could, which at that point you really can't, it's almost counterproductive. Like your body's letting you know, like
It wants to come out.
it's time to go. The other thing I would say is sometimes when you do kind of get that urge and you push through and kind of clench, sometimes that's actually when you get that gallbladder gurgle. It's like
The
you push
gurgle,
through,
yeah.
and that's when you kind of get it, like, then it, you hear that kind of squirt.
Sometimes I've heard too, some people, if you keep getting that sensation where you can't keep it into the 15 minutes, they did like a double batch of brewing, and
Yeah.
they did it and they release the first batch maybe at minute 3 to 5.
Yes.
And then they fill up their coffee enema again, right? And then they put a new batch, right, back in them. And then that one could last for the next 10 minutes or something that they needed it to last. But the first one only lasted like literally a hot minute. Is that?
Yeah, and I actually do that most often. Like when I do one, because I'm like, I've already gone through all the work to like
Prep it.
get it all set up and do everything. So like, and they say, that first one, you kind of like, you do kind of clear out some stuff in the colon. You kind of start to open up those vessels, but you can't hold it as long. And the second one, you kind of, you definitely get kind of like a deeper cleanse than you got on the
Now,
first.
you're only doing the second one though if you can't last the 15 minutes. If you can last the 15 minutes, there's no purpose in doing a second one. Is that correct?
Not necessarily. I mean, if you have the time for it, you don't want to maintain that same
Okay.
set of liquid because it's like
Oh, okay.
filled with toxins kind
Okay.
of thing.
But you could do it a second time if you
You
did
can
have
do
it.
it a second time as long as it's kind of a fresh batch of coffee.
And typically you're trying to get how much to go into your body.
Okay, that's a good question because I looked at some people are like, yeah, I do like a liter. I tend to do like 2 to 3 cups.
Okay, that's what you taught me. So I do about 2 to 3 cups of.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And the other thing I would say, along the lines of TMI, we're just gonna label it all TMI. But if you have not like let's say your colon's been a little bit backed up and you don't feel like you've been having regular bowel movements or you feel a little backed up, sometimes I will do this too, is I will just bring some filtered warm. We have a Berkey at our house. I do like Berkey water. You'll read some things that say you should do distilled. You definitely just don't want to be doing like tap water because of all the contaminants in it, whether it's what you're brewing your coffee with or whatever. But I will just do like warm to like a little, I was just kind of test it. I mean, you don't want the water to be so warm that it burns you. You also don't want it to be, cold, can be like crampy and uncomfortable. So anyway, sometimes I will just do a water enema first, and that just kind of like flushes everything out a little bit. And then you're able to also hold the coffee a little bit longer. So that's another thing you can do. And you don't necessarily have to like sit and hold it for like, 10 minutes. You can just kind of hold it for a minute or two, kind of let it percolate, and then.
And when you're setting up your station, like, so for me, like I have my yoga mat on the ground, I put a towel down, and I do it near my toilet, like my bathroom, right? So I'm in my room that's connected to my bathroom, but I'm like right there. And then I just have my TV or my phone with me, some music on, listen to a podcast, and you're literally just trying to relax for 10, 15 minutes, right? But yeah, so this little guide, which we can, we'll post or whatever, is like what it is. You're adding your 2 tablespoons of your, coffee that Lauren's going to recommend a specific kind. You're boiling it, letting it simmer for 15 minutes, then straining it. And then, that you want to get to a warm liquid. You don't want your coffee to be cold because it's sort of going to shock the body. You can always rewarm it a little bit. And then sometimes, is it true that I've even like, say if I had the idea, like I'm going to do it today, but then I didn't get to it, I could even keep it in the refrigerator and use it by the next day, but don't wait too much longer after that.
Yeah, so actually, you're a real junkie of a coffee enema person. One of the links I provided that, you'll get, she actually gives a recipe. It's the Season Johnson one.
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
That link. So she gives, it's a very similar recipe to the one we have up on the screen here, of how to make one. But she also says, if you want to make a concentrate,
okay,
so you can it gives you a recipe for a concentrate. So you use way more coffee, and it ends up with like one, mason jar, like 4 cups, but you're only going to end up taking 1 cup of that concentrate, and then you add it to like 3 cups of water. So it's like just a concentrate, and
Oh,
then you can batch it up for the week. They say it's good for like a week in the fridge.
oh, well,
So
that's
I
way
do
smart.
that just because it's way less work, like
You don't
it's
have to
way
think
more
about it as much. Yeah.
yeah, you don't have to think about it as much. And sometimes it's like, oh, I maybe would have had time, but I didn't have time if I had to also brew it. But
Right.
versus if I just,
Totally.
kind of had to.
So you'll have those kind of graphics just to give you to re talk about why you're doing it, right? Why coffee enemas? Like these are a lot of the things that a coffee enema can help, right? Depending on if you're dealing with them. So Lauren could talk a little bit more.
Yeah. So, you heard my story, which was all about, like, for me, it was all about skin, although I was having frankly, some of these other things like brain fog and stuff like that. But I've, since read kind of like what other people have done them for. And so you're just basically, I mean, you're helping to relieve it's kind of a 1-2 punch with a coffee in it, because you're releasing a lot of toxins, but you're also boosting your detoxifying capability because you're getting that surge in glutathione plus the release of all the toxins. So it's really great for relieving headaches, migraines, nausea. Do you mind backing up
Oh
one more
yeah, sorry.
slide, and then your increased energy
A lot
levels,
of people say that. Yeah.
and and so I feel like a big surge in like mental clarity and energy. I don't know if you feel that way, like,
Yeah.
um and then it really can help if you are struggling, and then reduces candida and the die-off symptoms. That was similar to me, and then it contributes to hormone regulation, because you think the liver is involved in your hormone synthesis as well, the conjugation of estrogen and blah, blah, blah. So anyways, it's helpful with that. And then reduces chronic pain and inflammation. Didn't you do one when we were doing a fast, Mel, and
Yeah.
you got rid of a lot of body aches?
Oh, totally. Yeah. Yeah.
I thought you were like, I feel awful. And I was like, you know what you really need?
Yeah. We did a
You need a
5 day.
coffee enema.
Yeah. We did a 5 day water fast where literally all you have is water for 5 days. It was hell on earth, but
Yeah, we don't recommend it.
yeah, but we did it. We were a little hardcore like that, but I literally could not sleep at night. I was getting all these crazy body aches or whatever, and
And
I
like migraines. And
yeah, migraines horrible. I get
it
headaches.
took me a couple days to talk you into it. You're like, I just feel like, you know what?
Yeah.
You need
And then that coffee enema literally like changed my life that week. Is probably only why I survived. So we are 45 minutes into it and we talked a lot about coffee enemas, but does anybody have any specific questions before we move on to other detoxing? Like I said, we have the full links and a document. We're going to add it right after this to the Facebook group. So if you're in our private Facebook group, Obsessed with Essentials, I'm going to add it right after that. And then I'm going to go over the other 2 ebooks we have, which have a lot more links and stuff like that for overall detoxing. But we wanted to go over a couple other detoxing things besides coffee enemas. But before we move on to that, does anyone have any specific questions? For Erica said, how often do you do coffee enemas?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it probably depends on
The season.
the season and the reason that you're doing them. When I talked about, how sick I was, back then, I was doing them like every day. I wasn't working a shift at the hospital because it was like helping me kind of survive. If you're doing it because you're like, man, I kind of want my skin to glow and I want a little boost of energy, maybe try and do them like once or twice a week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone's personal preference. There's a presidential diamond doTERRA. Her name's Susan Johnson. She's like, I do them every single day. So I think
it's part of her morning power hour.
Yeah, her morning power hour. Yeah.
Her blog post, I linked up. That's the one I linked up. One of the ones I linked up that we'll have.
Yeah, she has great resources. Her son was diagnosed with cancer, and they totally, in a sense, got him. He's way older now, so he's not, I won't say the word cured, but whatever the word is, he's doing great, and so she has a real passion for natural health, detoxing, everything. So if you don't follow Susan Johnson on Instagram, we would really highly recommend. Did you have a question, Erica? Did you want to unmute yourself?
Yeah, I wanted to ask, can coffee enema be done with other detoxes like Zendocrine if you're taking the Zendocrine capsules, or if you're doing like Paragard, which is like a parasite cleanse? Should someone like not do them at the same time, or can you do them together? Is it safe enough to do it at the same time?
That's a great question. I actually think it is great. It's actually would be helpful if you're doing other cleanses. I've done like doTERRA's, which we can talk about in a little bit too, but I've done their Zendocrine, like they don't have it as a kit anymore, but they still have all the same products where it's called like a cleanse and restore. So you like take these endocrine, the oil, which is all oils that help with detox, all essential oils, a blend, and then also a bunch of herbs that also target basically those same organs, you know, colon, liver, you know, but in the herb form. And you take those. But the thing is, if you're doing a parasite cleanse or anything, I've also done one of those too. But the main thing they say is you don't want your detox pathways blocked. Like the worst thing you could do, you know, if you're trying to detox is like be pushing toxins out of your system. But then if you think of detox like a funnel and you're backed up and your pathways aren't open, you're actually what's going to like auto intoxication. You will recirculate and reabsorb those toxins. So they actually are like a great thing to do in conjunction with those things.
And then one other thing, talk about for a quick second, I know we're going late, on binders. So if you're feeling you're really toxic, you want to take a binder. Like I'm even gonna ordered a binder this last week because I was doing coffee enemas every single week. And I was like, I'm feeling a couple, I literally never get zits on my face, right? And I did get 2 of them and I was like, ugh. And then, so I'm like, I'm thinking I am releasing, because I just started doing them again, right? I took a little break off of them and I'm like, crap. So I feel like I do need a binder. So tell them what a binder is, and then we can put the link on that as well.
Yeah, we'll do the link. There's different kinds of binders, but a binder is basically, it's like something you take, it's like a little capsule, you know, that you take internally, and it helps absorb toxins. So one of probably the most common one that probably people have heard of, I mean, they even use it in the emergency room, is activated charcoal. I mean, you can also buy it at the health food store because it has an affinity for toxins, and so it'll absorb. And then there's another one that I really like by Cellcore. And
we can put the link of it. Yeah.
We can put the link up. I like that one. I feel like it works amazing. And 2, it somehow doesn't absorb like medications or supplements and stuff. So you don't have to be as like, if you take activated charcoal, you can't take it around medications or supplements, you know, that you really need, because it will also, it'll just absorb to everything. So the binder, the idea, I actually started using binders consistently when I started going in the sauna. I felt like my skin was flushing stuff out, and I was following this lady who's really into saunas and coffee enemas, and she said, take a binder before, because that stuff you're pushing out, you're gonna, you know, it's just like an extra mop that comes up behind and like mops up some of those extra toxins. And it's the same thing for a coffee enema. You know, you are getting that squirt of bile, you know, you're opening up those bile ducts, you are opening stuff up and getting it moving. So it's just enough, it's gonna, since you're kind of stirring stuff up, it's going to come and mop some of that stuff. That can definitely help it, because, you know, sometimes you can get a little nauseous from it and stuff like that. It can definitely help. Or like Mel said, you're getting breakouts. Your skin is always a good window as to like what's coming out and what you're filtering with.
Yeah, awesome. One person said, can it be done on children, coffee enemas?
I mean, that's a tricky one. I mean, when you say children, I mean, I'm like a big coffee enema junkie, and I've never done one on my kids. This I haven't done because I just haven't had as much of a need to do them on my kids. I'm sure there would be benefit if I did. I would probably look, so I'm not the expert, but I would look, Season Johnson has a whole post on this, but I would look into castor oil packs, because is external. You know, you're putting the castor oil and flannel. You could even mix some Xenocrine in with it, put it over the lip, you know, put it over the liver. She has a whole protocol that was part of her son's, but that also is going to target the liver, and then it's less invasive.
Yeah. Okay. And then someone asked about the Facebook group. So if you're in our Obsessed with Essentials community and you got signed up with one of us through doTERRA, then you have access to our private Facebook group. If not, that is a private group. If you haven't gotten started with doTERRA, you can just reach out to the person, whoever invited you to this webinar. You know, there's lots of us on here who are in our Obsessed with Essentials community. So reach out to the person who got, you know, who you heard about this webinar from, and they can totally help you, you know, get signed up with doTERRA and then get added to our community community. We have all the ebooks and all the recipes and everything that is for our community. We try to, do a lot of things that we post for everyone in general, but a lot of it is private for our community as an extra perk. So we're going to show you a couple of those kind of things right now. So that was our coffee enema talk. Like I said, we'll put the links below. We do have, I'm just going to quickly show you since I know we are, oh, there's my face on Facebook. Okay. Okay, so in our Facebook group, if you go to Obsessed with Essentials, right, here it is. If you go to the More section, you'll see media. Once you click on media, it's going to take you to this. This is like the jackpot of our Facebook group. It has all of our continuing education, our wellness boxes, and then the thing you're going to use the most probably is our ebooks, right? So if you click to ebooks, has all of our ebooks linked. Now we also have a private website too, and the ebooks are on there. So if you're in our community, you can reach out to the person that signed you up. They can tell you our website. We're actually working on an app right now too, my husband and I, so it'll be even easier for everyone to access everything. But you can see, look, there's a bunch of different webinars. The two that I'm going over right now is essential oils for whole body health. This will have so many links in here you will love. So essential oils, whole body health. And then if you scroll down, this is an amazing protocol, Lighten and Glow, that ebook as well. It's going to have so many great recipes and detox. It has the dry brushing video on there linked and everything. So you just click on this and the whole link to the ebook will come up. There's one more that is right here, a toxin free guide. That one's going to be in a different section. I think when you click on it, you'll see right here, it says you can find this one in our file section. So since it's not a link, it's a PDF. So, but otherwise, this is what those ebooks look like. So they're a full ebook with all the different posts. So if you have gut health issues, if you're looking into our vitamin pack, like it's literally, has everything. This is our Lighten and Glow protocol to help regulate your hormones, help with weight loss, all the things. It's amazing. Detoxing. So you can read on that if you're interested in the testimonials behind that. But what I wanted to share with you real quick specifically was dry brushing. So since it's almost an hour into the webinar, I'm just going to say, go and read it. But look, we have the whole thing on dry brushing. It basically is helping you get your lymphatic system draining, right? Your skin is the largest organ on your body, right? We put so much stuff on it. We want to help get that going. So a dry brush, you can just get them on Amazon, very easy like this. And you're using it to dry brush. You can also add your essential oil to the dry brush, or after you dry brush, you can add like your essential oils to, a lotion or our beautiful spray or anything like that, and put that in to help detox, help with your metabolism. So if you scroll down the ebook, you're going to see how to dry brush right here. Then it gives you a little bit more on dry brushing, a whole video on dry brushing, and then a detox bath too. Detox baths are one of my personal favorite things to do. It's one of my #1 things for my kids.
I was just going to say that'd be a great one for kids.
Yeah, #1, if my kids are not feeling well, it's my go-to thing every single time I get a result from it. It's like literally, I can't believe how well it works. It's the simplest thing ever. You're literally just taking Epsom salt, baking soda, mixing it together. There's no perfect recipe. Everyone mixes it a little bit differently, but you could say like, a half a cup of Epsom salt and a quarter cup of baking soda or whatever it is. And then you're taking your essential oil and you're adding that to that mixture. A lot of times I'll pre-mix my Epsom salt and baking soda in a big, like cute apothecary jar. And then whenever I'm ready for my detox bath, I just take a scoop out. Sometimes for kids, they say a quarter cup to a half a cup of the mixture, adults up to a cup, I think. And then, how many drops of oil is sort of personal preference. I like mine a little bit stronger. But if you've never done one, you could do it a little bit lower. And it also just depends on the oils you're doing, right? Some are more gentle, like a lavender. Other ones, if you're doing like cilantro for a deep detox or zendecrine, you might not want as many drops. But I use them for relaxing. I'll do balance, serenity, lavender, copaiba, frankincense, any of those at night if I need to relax. And then for detoxing specifically, I like zendecrine, rosemary, juniper berry, any of those. And I'm adding just a couple drops, maybe for kiddos, 3 to 5 drops of essential oil to my Epsom salt mixture. Then I'm putting that in the bath and having them soak for about 20 minutes. For fevers, anytime they're sick, if they have any kind of skin rash or anything. For skin rashes, I like tea tree, lavender, frankincense, yarrow palm, copaiba, any of those, rose. And I'm adding those to the Epsom salt, having them soak. It's like a miracle bath. Like, it's seriously. I've done it on my kids a couple times a day. If they've had skin things that I'm like, ooh, that's looking a little funky, I do it a couple times, right? So that's what I would say was one of the easiest ways you can incorporate your essential oils and detoxing is through that Epsom salt baking soda bath. Do you want to add any info to that, Laura?
No, I was just gonna say I do the same thing for my kids. I mean, my mom watches my kids the days I'm at the hospital, and there's, since they're not in daycare, there's been times, where my kids were under the weather, my mom was watching. So I like left out the detox bath, and she was like, I did it because I just, you told me to, but she was like, I couldn't believe how well, it worked.
Yeah.
It almost gives like an instant effect. They get out feeling so well.
Instant. That's probably the most used thing. I have new oil customers when their kids are sick do, and they're literally like, oh my gosh, my kid.
Yeah. Or neighbors, if they're around the corner, they tell me like, I drop it off. I'm like, here, just dump this in the bath. And they like, always, they're texting me like, that was amazing. It's just household, things on hand.
Inflammation for sore muscles, lemongrass, marjoram, frankincense, copaiba, like so good. So that would be, and that's in the Lightning Glow ebook. And then the other one, which is literally a wealth of knowledge. So that's going to be essential oils for whole body health. I mean, if you want a deep dive, this goes over gut health, has all of our supplements. It goes over sleep. It goes over food, everything. And then there's a whole section on detoxing. And so this is from Sherry, and I love it. She goes over, has an overview, and then she goes with link after link after link, right, of all the things you can look into over mold, EMFs, whole food diet, food sensitivity test, Dr. Axe, do you have the MTHFR, digestive enzymes, probiotic, Zendocrine, our soft gels, our oil, Sherry's favorite bath recipe, infrared sauna, ionic foot bath, all the things. It's literally coffee enemas right here, right? So this is a great ebook. Again, it's already in there. What's a colonic, salt therapy, lymphatic drainage, dry brushing. This is like the mega document. So it's already on the Facebook group. So you just go to your Facebook group, then go to media, and then it's in the ebook section. So that's where this one is, and it will have everything. Lauren wanted to add a couple more of the coffee enema resources. So we're going to add that for you guys tonight separately. I'll post it to Facebook, but then we're going to integrate it into this ebook. So it's all together eventually. And then Lauren goes over nutrition and stuff. So again, this is a great ebook that I would say really to go over. And then the last thing I think we wanted to go over real quick, which was easy to do, is another thing that you can detox with is our mud mask. So if you haven't used that ever before, you want to talk about how you do that on your armpits specifically?
Yeah. So I actually, interestingly, I will I use it on my face too, obviously, but I will also put it on my armpits because it's got a lot of clays in it that are drawing out toxins. You think of like what's in your armpit area. It's a super rich with like lymph nodes. So you're drawing all that out. I have found if I do a coffee enema and armpit mud mask, I do not need to wear deodorant for at least 24 hours. Like I don't have body odor. It just, gets rid of it. So I know it really is like drawing out those toxins. So, and I will often just put it on while I'm doing my coffee enema. So I like get all my stuff ready, slap it on, why I just try and stack as many things into like one thing as possible. Totally. So, and I really like it. It has myrrh in it and juniper berry, and it smells really great and it feels really great. I used to mix my own with like bentonite clay, but this is like so much easier and I love how it works. So.
And if you have sensitive skin, this mask is strong. You only need it on for a very short amount of time. Like if you have sensitive skin, 3 minutes, you're good. Probably you do not want to keep it on for 20 minutes. Your face might look red, but that's the circulation that the clay and all of that is doing. It's totally fine. But again, if you have sensitive skin, do it 2 to 3 minutes. You might not need it longer. If you want it longer next time, you could try to it. But a couple of people are like, oh my gosh, it made my face red. Well, just like a lot of facial treatments I've gotten, my face is red afterwards. Sometimes that's just the truth, right? You're circulating a lot of things. But you just want to be aware if you have sensitive skin, do it for a less time.
Yeah. I actually just had a nurse that I work with, and she's a customer of mine, but she was telling me, she's like, I've been really wanting to make the switch to natural deodorant because I still use regular deodorant. So I was telling her about her deodorant and how I love it, but I did give her the sort of the warning or disclaimer. I said, anytime you're switching from an aluminum base